We're talking constitutional carry, concealed carry. When can you shoot? When should you not shoot? All that with Emily Taylor from U.S. Law Shield. Hey, welcome into Gun Talk Nation. This Gun Talk Nation is brought to you by Timney Triggers, Safariland, We Save Lives, and by Smith & Wesson and also Armscor. So a lot of support here. We appreciate all of our sponsors. Today on Gun Talk Nation, we're talking some important stuff, constitutional carry, your legal rights when it comes to carrying and being into self-defense scenarios. And we brought in a special guest, Emily Taylor from U.S. Law Shield. Emily, welcome in.
Thanks for having me.
So give the folks a little background on you, of who you are, what you do with U.S. Law Shield, and kind of how you got here.
Well, sure thing. I'm a former felony prosecutor. I've been working as an independent program attorney for U.S. Law Shield for 7 years now, defending their members. So anytime a U.S. Law Shield member has to use self-defense, defend others, in states where defense of property is legal, like it is here in Texas, and they get charged with a criminal act or they get sued civilly, they get free lawyers. And so that's what I do. Everything from, your lowest level assault, just shoving someone maybe, up through murder and everything in between.
Wow. Well, it's a funny thing. So I'm over in Louisiana. We have concealed carry permits. They're working on constitutional carry here. And I know over in Texas where you are, they just passed constitutional carry and it's on its way to the governor to be signed. That's a big movement these days. I think we've got nearly about 20 states or so that have some form of constitutional carry. Explain to people what that is, and maybe there's some confusion about what it isn't.
Sure. And, it's funny. And they're really, frankly, the confusion makes a lot of sense because constitutional carry you're 100% correct. 20 states, Texas will be number 21. Constitutional carry is like a snowflake. It is different in every single state. No constitutional carries, no two are going to be alike. And so you have everything from, let's say, a state like Idaho, where it is incredibly permissive. 18 years old, you can start constitutional carrying. There are very few no-gun zones. It's really very cut and dried. You get to own and possess under, just your general. You're not a felon. You're not a domestic violence convict. All of that normal sort of firearms, good stuff there. Mm-hmm. You get to carry. We have states as restrictive as Tennessee just passed a constitutional carry law in which you have to 100% qualify for a Tennessee enhanced carry permit in order to engage in constitutional carry. So essentially what they've said is, we basically are still going to make you qualify for a permit. We're just not going to make you actually pay for one and get one. Texas sits right in the middle. We have said, look, if you can own and possess under federal law and you can buy under federal law, so you got to be 21 years of age or older, and we threw in some extra qualifiers. We put in some misdemeanor convictions. We've got a 5-year cooling off period for people who have been convicted of certain violent misdemeanors. So long as you satisfy, tick all of our constitutional carry boxes, you simply don't have to have a permit to carry. And that's pretty much where most states sit. There's some sort of qualification over and above, purchasing on the federal level. But once you get there, no permits required. Some states are only open. Some states are concealed and open. Like I said, each constitutional carry state is its own special snowflake. But your general idea is the Constitution, right? The Second Amendment is your permit to carry.
Emily, it's a good explanation for people because yes, it's different in every state. But the idea of you don't need a permit to exercise this right to carry a gun, although maybe Tennessee, you're almost there. They're kind of, it's like diet constitutional carry. It's kind of barely constitutional carry. But people ask me about this and they go, well, what's wrong with having a permit? Well, there's nothing wrong with having a permit. That's good. But should you really have to ask the government permission to exercise a constitutional right? And then the other side of it, they'll say, well, don't you think people should get training? Yes, I do. I think people should want to get training, but I don't think they should be, again, required to get training to exercise a constitutional right. And what I've heard is when a state passes constitutional carry, the concealed carry classes, the attendance in concealed carry classes goes down for maybe about 6 months. And then as more and more people are carrying because the barrier to entry has been lowered, there are a lot more people going, you know what? I don't really feel like I know what I'm doing. If you just all of a sudden said, oh, the handgun I own, I'm going to put it in a holster and start carrying it. I never took a class, never had any training. After a while, you might go, you know, if something happens, do I even know what I'm doing here? And I think that people start seeking out that type of training. I know you work with U.S. Law Shield, and you guys have various types of programs on education stuff, as well as the self-defense, legal defense side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And gosh, I want to touch on everything you just brought up. So, you know, I'll start with the last. You are absolutely right. And I don't know if it is a weird quirk of humanity, like, oh, all these other people are doing it. I want to go the extra step. I want to be the guy who's best trained. Or if it's people simply realizing, I'm carrying around in public. I need to know what's going on. Let me jump through these extra hoops. But licenses do tend to increase once we've gone to constitutional carry. And there are so many educational resources out there. Everything from just, going and hitting that basic pistol course to actually getting your license, which there are a million reasons to continue to get your license, even if your state has gone to constitutional carry, to, use situations like, you're just strictly educational, like U.S. Law Shield. There's some tactical courses that U.S. Law Shield does, but education is such a big push of theirs, and that is incredibly important to get yourself in that right mindset, that it is a constant issue of muscle memory, not just for your arms and your trigger finger, but for your brain as well. And yes, there are the barriers to entry on a license to carry are not fantastic for everyone. In Texas, we have things like being delinquent on your taxes, or you got a DWI 4 years ago. Those are things that should not restrict your Second Amendment right, at least in my opinion. Probably the most legitimate criticism I hear of constitutional carry is people should be trained. That's absolutely right. But I'll tell you, here in Texas, the training is 50 rounds downrange onto a piece of paper. If that's the only thing you've done, and I've had my license to carry 8 years. If I had never been to the range since I put those 50 rounds into a piece of paper, I am no more safe than if I had never, ever discharged my weapon in the first place. So it's still incumbent upon all of us as individuals to do the right thing, keep ourselves and the community safe while we're carrying. We have to be the best stewards of the Second Amendment we can possibly be.
Absolutely. And it's a funny thing that the want to go get training, it comes for more people as they start doing it. Now, I want to change gears here. As a former prosecutor, you have seen all walks of life, shall I say. And it's easy for most people are good people. Most people live in pretty good areas, but when you come from a background of being a prosecutor, you could speak to how bad are the bad guys. And if you live in the suburbs somewhere and you're like, I don't know, I feel fairly safe, and understanding how bad the bad guys can be, I'm sure that you have a different perspective than most people.
Absolutely. And not only are they bad, they're smart. We like to imagine maybe someone just bumbling their way through life, committing crimes.
The dumb crook guy. Sure.
Exactly. And that is just not reality. What we've got are people who know how to get away with what they're doing, know how to pick good victims.
Mm.
And that's, on a gut check level to me, when we talk about more people being able to exercise that Second Amendment right, being able to carry, you have criminals who are going to say to themselves, how willing am I to risk picking a victim who is likely to be armed and ready to defend themselves? And there's a reason. When I was a prosecutor, I saw over and over and over again picking, and, not just, they're picking nighttime places where there are no cameras, no one else around, easy to get away with type situations, but they're picking women, they're picking elderly people, they're picking people who are not the 300-pound, 6'5" Marine who's got the NRA sticker on his bumper.
Yeah, it's easy for them to not go after the built, buff guy wearing 5'11" pants, but it's a wonderful thing when you have more and more people not only just carrying, but have practiced and gotten some education, and they're fairly competent. And now it's a wonderful little surprise for them when they have a failure in the victim selection process and they go after 57-year-old grandma looking lady who happens to be carrying a Glock and knows how to use it.
Absolutely. And, I think we can all, although you see the statistics that come out of places like the Gabby Gifford Center that say more guns equals more violent crime. But it just, first of all, that contradicts statistics that come out of other places. And I know there are lies, damn lies in statistics, but just on that very basic level, I know criminals. I know they're not stupid. And I know that if they see that you're armed, they are not picking you. They're going to pick that easier target. So it just makes sense to me that more good guys with guns equals less violent crime.
It makes it a lot harder for them to pick the right victim when you go, gosh, at one point, maybe they thought, well, I don't know, 1 out of 10 might be trained up and willing to fight back or have some sort of gun on them. But what if it's 5 out of 10 or 6 out of 10? You start going, man, my odds are getting worse by the second as a criminal.
That's exactly right.
So on the legal side of things, for people out there who are interested in this subject, they carry daily, what are some of the maybe common mistakes that you see or hear about as far as people concealed carrying and when it comes to the legal side of things?
It is so easy for people to misinterpret. Essentially, we've got two big avenues of problems. One is the where I'm allowed to carry, and the other is when I'm allowed to use this weapon. And I hear people all the time, and we hear things floated around like the castle doctrine, stand your ground. And you can't read a news article that quickly blows through what that means and assume that you know and that you're going to do it correctly. It is, we've got great, what we call NRA model castle doctrine and stand your ground throughout this country. Although, again, every state's law is just a little bit different, but we've got very similar, through much of the South at least, very similar laws. But you've really got to know. You've got to know, is my vehicle my castle? Is it just my home? What constitutes this forcible and unlawful entry that's going to trigger my castle doctrine rights? Is it, like Texas and attempt? Is it like some states where an entry actually has to be made? And if you shoot too soon, if you shoot too late, if you shoot in a place you thought was your castle, but it just wasn't because you were reading about some other state's law and got confused, ignorance of the law is no legal excuse. And that takes you from a place of, you're going to be either no billed by the grand jury if you're in a state that has a grand jury process, or not arrested at all, to I'm fighting for my life now because I am fighting against a murder charge. It is incredibly important, and it's decisions that you've got to make in tenths of a second, and you have to know in your gut where those lines are drawn. That's a biggie. And then, of course, keep in mind, no man, woman, or child is safe while your state's legislature is in session. They will change those laws on you in terms of where you can carry. Gun-free zones get altered all the time throughout the country. And that's another one where you carry into the wrong spot because you just didn't realize the laws just changed. There is not a lawman in this country who is going to care about that. You're going to be fighting for your freedom and fighting to keep your gun rights just because you made an honest mistake.
Yeah, there's a lot of bad legal advice on social media and in forums out there. I mean, it's gotten so bad where you occasionally somebody go, well, all you have to do is say you were in fear for your life and you're fine. No, I don't think that's written anywhere. That's not real.
Absolutely no. And that has become so prevalent that what we're seeing, we handle, entirely self-defense cases. And what we're seeing is when we've got a client who calls in after a self-defense incident, tells 911 or tells the officers on scene, I was in fear for my life, that is a trigger now for prosecutors to say, aha, he just knew what he had to say.
Oh,
this isn't real. He's faking it. It's tough out there for a gun owner right now. Now, if anyone's wondering, what should I say instead? I tell all of the people I advise on this issue that the exact same sentiment is expressed by, he was going to kill me. I knew he was going to kill me if I didn't do what I did.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I was going to die. Same thing. That's being in fear for your life, but it doesn't have that ring of, I may have been coached on the internet as to what to say. And just something, that's how scary it is to defend yourself in this country right now, is something as simple as that can be the difference between a prosecutor deciding you're a liar and he's really going to go after you, or someone saying, yeah, I could see how this was legitimate self-defense. Let's do a little more investigation and maybe let's lay off and leave him alone.
Hey, Gun Talk Nation is brought to you by ATN, the future of optics. ATN recently launched their upgrade program. And what that is it offers owners of ATN products to upgrade the latest X-Sight models. Full warranties included. You get free shipping. The upgrade process is fast and easy. And all you have to do is visit atncorp.com/upgrade program for all the details. Also, Armscor, Rock Island Armory, their newest addition to their lineup is the STK 100. This is their first striker-fired pistol. I've shot it. It's actually very nice. It's the STK is a 9mm. It has 17 round capacity in the magazine. It's kind of a Glock style magazine. Solid aluminum frame, which is different. This isn't a polymer gun. And the advantages of a metal pistol for the price of polymer is kind of how they're positioning this. But the STK 100 also is optics ready on the slide, and it has an extended beaver tail. Their heritage comes from the 1911s. So it's a nice shooting, nice feeling gun. Find out more at armscor.com. Also, Gun Talk Nation is brought to you by Safariland. Their 575 IWB holster inside the waistband. It's designed to fit multiple firearms, which is a little bit different. Usually, it's kind of one holster for one gun. This fits several, and it's available for slim fits like Glocks, Springfields, SIGs, M&Ps, that type of thing. It's optics capable, and it offers they call it a grip lock system, but it's basically some sort of retention, which is a nice little extra feature. Enter code GUNTALK20 for 20% off holsters and accessories at Safariland.com now through June 30th. And depending on where you are, you may not be given the benefit of the doubt, Emily. I mean, I know you know this, but for people listening, you may run into the DA, prosecutor, whoever, who has an axe to grind or doesn't like your political affiliation or the fact that you're a concealed carry person, and it may be a completely valid, good shoot, but they want to, hey, they got to get reelected or whatever it may be and make an example. And as you kind of alluded to, they're a lot more familiar with the legal system than you are, probably as a regular Joe Schmo concealed carry guy.
Absolutely. And yes, prosecutors are elected officials. And so, depending on their political party, which way the wind is blowing, they will go after certain groups of people. And, if you're in a large metropolitan area, I can virtually guarantee that gun owners and people who use self-defense are going to be one of those groups. They want to paint your portrait on the wall and say, I nailed this guy. The McCloskeys up in Missouri are a great example of this phenomena where, there's maybe a tough reelection campaign or, maybe higher political office that's being considered, or maybe it's just high profile and you want to get your name out there and be that DA who nailed those guys. But the individual whims of prosecutors in your local jurisdiction matters. And this is, we're having a conversation that's probably going to just scare people into saying, oh my gosh, well, maybe I shouldn't carry at all. That's not the answer here, but it is something. I mean, we do have to be incredibly cautious, know our stuff, know when it's appropriate to use self-defense, either by display or discharge. Again, U.S. Law Shield, wonderful resource for that. I can't tell you how many members I have call in who just want to talk through a hypothetical. Hey, I leave work at this hour. This is the situation I'm walking through or driving through. I had this thought about something that could happen to me. Let's talk through it. And that's a great way to not scare yourself out of carrying, but to know in advance, to have thought about, hey, these are the things that could happen, and I want to know what my rights are and what to worry about in these situations.
It's a great point. And doing the what ifs is a valid mental exercise in figuring out what would I do if, and then maybe running that up the flagpole of, is this legal or not? And I do see you guys have a lot of resources and also classes that people can actually attend in their area.
Absolutely. We have, everything from shoot, don't shoot courses, which is great because you actually get that adrenaline pumping, make the shoot, don't shoot decision in in your sort of virtual reality world, talk through it with a lawyer about, what the legalities were of what you did, to just plain old educational, let's talk about the law, and you get your chance to ask questions and to run through it. It is, it is a wonderful, wonderful exercise. I can't tell you how many times people have called in and had an impression about what they could legally do. And, either I could say, hey, you actually can do way more than that. Don't wait until this point. You're putting yourself in danger. Or the opposite. Like, man, I know you think you can shoot someone who's, like in Texas, we call them a mere trespasser. I know you think you can shoot someone who's just prowling around on your property. That's a quick trip to prison. You can't do that. These are the lines and where they're drawn. So, knowing, it can save your life either way, right? Either you save your life from the bad guy because you didn't wait too late, or you save your life from the legal system because you didn't act too soon.
Right. And you kind of alluded to it. I've heard this in concealed carry classes that I've been in, is the whole, when can I shoot him? And it's almost a joke in our office. If anyone has a renewal class they go to, okay, tell me the stories. What were people asking? Well, can I shoot him if this? Can I shoot him if that? And honestly, that's good to know that stuff, but it's also like, guys, you understand you don't want to have to do that. You want to avoid that at all costs.
Oh gosh, absolutely. I have a very dear friend in law enforcement whose big, statement on this is, there are 3 battles if you discharge your weapon. There is the gun battle, there's the legal battle, and then there's the moral battle. You take a life, you got to be really sure that you had to do it. And winning 2 out of 3 of those battles is still a loss. You have got to win all 3. Even if you win the gunfight, you've got to get through the legal battle, and you've got to, be right within your own heart and mind about what you did. you cannot you cannot count on winning the gun battle and moving on. The legal battle itself, you're looking at years of your life. You're looking at, tens of thousands of dollars in bond fees. You are looking at, if you don't have any sort of protection, you're looking at potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars for attorneys and experts, and years of your life. You're going to get fired. Your name is going to be all over the paper. It is life altering, even if ultimately years down the line that jury comes back and says not guilty, you've still lost.
Right. I think you paint a good picture. It's a serious matter. Now, let's be constructive with this, and maybe there's a couple lessons that listeners can take away. Thinking about some of the people that you guys have helped, some of your members, do you have any examples or stories to share of here's some real life stuff that happened and what they did right or did wrong?
Oh, sure. Gosh, I'll give you a close call. It's a really good example of why you've got to be really, really sure before you pull that trigger. I spoke to a man, and this is years ago now, but he's, your typical good Samaritan leaving a Walmart, walking to the back of the lot where he's parked his truck. He sees an elderly woman just in hysterics, struggling over her purse with a man, big guy in his mid-30s. And they're sort of pulling back and forth, and she's crying. And he thinks, oh my gosh, she's being robbed. This is really serious. And he drops his bag. He unholsters his weapon. He points it at the man, and he says, drop the purse. And sure enough, the man drops the purse. He hits the ground. And the woman sort of just takes off. Turns out, and this is, I'll tell you the part that gives me sort of chills. He said to me, if that guy hadn't dropped the purse and hit the ground that fast, I think I would have shot him. Her reaction was so intense and so serious. I was terrified. It shot my adrenaline up immediately.
Mm.
Turns out that woman was his mother. She had dementia and was having just this awful episode, and he was trying to get her kind of under control and into the vehicle. And so It was, and that was, the police showed up, and that's the truth of the matter. And so that's a situation in which, he actually, in the state of Texas, he could have won 2 of those 3 battles, right? There's not he's not going to lose that gunfight. And in Texas, you can look at the situation from the eyes of the person who shot the information they should have known at the time. So even if you're wrong, as long as it was reasonable in what you believed, you can still be acquitted by the jury. You might not be, because that jury's still going to hear all the information, but they get to look at it from your eyes. But he was never going to win that moral battle. And so his, that split second where he decided not to shoot, even though he knew he could defend a third party from an aggravated robbery by the laws of the state of Texas, and we're pretty lenient on that. That saved him from, maybe a trip to prison, definitely a lifelong battle, probably morally within himself. So it is, I tell people, and this is my personal decision from having worked these situations over and over and over again. When you're looking at third parties in particular, I am never, ever going to draw my weapon or fire unless it is someone I am willing to die for. And that list is very short. Now, there are people who say, you know what, I would sacrifice it for any other human being out there. God bless you. But just be very sure before you land yourself in the situation what you're willing to risk for another person, because that story could have ended very badly for that man.
It's a great point, and I completely agree. You have to be very, very, very careful, very slow, perhaps, to interject yourself into a situation that's really not your situation. It's not your problem. And it's something that I think that's important to think through beforehand, as you have, Emily, because the problem is you get into it, the adrenaline starts pumping. And if you haven't already weeks, months, years before this happens to make that decision of whether or not I would get involved in this, it's hard to make that decision on the fly. So it's a great point. Emily, thanks for being with us. This has been really interesting and I think helpful to our listeners.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me.
So if they want to find out more, where would they go on the U.S. Law Shield side of things?
Oh, uslawshield.com. You can navigate through everything from education to, great videos to get you updated on the law. For y'all out in Louisiana, our program attorney out there is James Reeves, who is also one of the stars of the Firearm Blog TV. He's a great resource. You can get set up talking to him once you become a member. So just the main page, uslawshield.com. It's easy to navigate. You can find everything you need.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Emily. That's it for us, and we will see you guys next time on Gun Talk Nation.